And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, we're here today and we're taking a look at Taluva, which is a little bit older game by Rio Grande Games. And this one is kind of a cross between a Carcassonne tile-laying type mechanic and maybe the anthill mechanic from Antics if you've played that. Now the game plays 2 to 4 players. It's a quick little game, about 45 minutes. Why don't we take a look at what comes inside the box and how the game plays. So here we have Taluva's instruction manual, and you can see here it's pretty well laid out. It has some nice diagrams in it, several nice diagrams. It's in full color, and it gives several examples of how to play, different scenarios that may arise, things you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And it's only 4 pages long, which is a nice little touch. With this instruction manual, you can easily learn the game in about 5 minutes. You'll be ready to play immediately. So essentially, good instruction booklet, easy to learn, well illustrated, easy to reference, no problems here. Next in the game, and one of the central focuses of the game, are these tiles that you get. And you can see that these tiles are combinations of 3 hexagons in this nice little triangular type shape. Each tile will feature 1 volcano on one of the hexagons. You can see here this little volcano. And then 2 other geographical types of land. So either a forest on this case, or we have some rocks. If you look at another tile here, you can see a forest in like a plains area. Or even yet another tile, we have a beach and some more forest. So there's a lot of forest, but there's 3 different types of land on each one. A volcano and then 2 other types on each tile. The focus of the game is to be building the island using these tiles and then placing buildings, which I'll show you next, onto the island and getting the most of your buildings or all of 2 types of your buildings onto the play surface before any of the other players. So the last thing you get in the game, and this is actually the entirety of the pieces, are player pieces in 4 different colors, yellow, brown, red, and one other color, I believe it's white. And as you can see, there are 3 different types of player pieces here, as well as a summary card for each player on how to play. The first type of player piece are going to be these little teepee-shaped things, which represent villages or basic huts in the game. They're basic huts. And these are going to be the easiest pieces you get on, or you're trying to get onto the board. You also have the most of them. These can be placed onto a level 1 tile, so a tile that's at the base level of the island, or they can be expanded from a settlement onto larger, higher up tiles, getting more of them onto the board as you go higher up on the island. The next type of piece that you get are towers. You get 2 towers for each player, and towers have a special rule that they must be placed on a level 3 section of the island. So as you build along, you're going to be building the island up, and you're going to be trying to get to an area where you can get up to level 3 and place one of these towers onto the board. You'll note there's only 2 of them. That's because they're the hardest piece to get onto the board. And getting up to level 3 isn't always the easiest thing to do in one of your own settlements. The last type of piece you get are temples, and there's 3 of these, and they look like little pyramids. These are actually the highest point scores, or the game-determining factor if the game ends by running out of tiles. Whoever has the most of these temples on the board will be the winner at the end of the game if you run out of tiles. After that, you take a look at towers and then the huts. But the important part about the temples here is that getting them onto the board requires a settlement area of at least 3 tiles. That means you must have at least 3 buildings in one of your settlements, which includes any type of building, in order to build a temple. Getting a temple will allow you to be a higher point score at the end of the game, and as I said, if you get any 2 types of all of your buildings on the board, you're immediately the winner. So the main interesting part of Taluva is the tile placement mechanics and the dynamics of how tiles are placed. It's important to notice, I said earlier, that each tile will have a volcano on it and that the lava on the volcano will always flow in one direction. Now, the main rule of tile placement in the game is that you must always place tiles next to each other or on top of each other. And if you're going to place a tile on top of another tile, you may never place them so that the lava flows in the same direction. Now, what this is really saying, since all the tiles are designed the same way, is that no tile may ever be placed directly over the top of another tile, because the 2 tiles will always have their lava flowing in the same direction, because when you place a tile on top of another tile, you must always place the volcano over another volcano. So in this example, the only options at the beginning of the game are to play tiles next to each other, because if I were to play on top, I would have to cover the tile with the lava in the same orientation. So as you build the game along, you're going to be placing tiles side to side until you reach a point where it's possible to build one tile on top of another one, by orienting the volcanoes with their lava flowing in different directions. Now remember, you must always place a volcano over another volcano if you're placing a new tile, and you must always cover at least 2 tiles so that the lavas flow in different directions. In this case, I could place this piece in this orientation as the lava now flows this way instead of this way, or I could place this tile over here in this orientation, covering yet another volcano with the newly placed volcano. So as the game progresses, players will be building and placing, and on your turn you first must flip a tile and place that tile. So the first player will have to place their tile in the middle of the board, and you always must second add a building to the board or expand a current settlement. So the first player, let's say the red player, starts a tile, flips a tile and places it on the board, and places one of their huts on the first level. Huts are the only buildings that have no stipulations on how you must build them, except for they must always be originally placed on the first level of the board. So the second player flips a tile and places it next to that, and will place one of their buildings, as that's their only real option on the first turn. And play continues. The next player, or the second player, whoever, the first player again, placing a piece. It would actually be wise for this player to place the forests next to each other. And their next option is that they may expand a settlement on their turn. Now, expanding a settlement means to choose one building and choose one type of terrain surrounding that building, and place huts onto each one of those buildings each one of those terrains that touches the current settlement. In this case, for example, this settlement here by red, which consists of 1 hut, borders 2 forests. Now, he can choose to expand to forests and place 1 building onto each of the forests next to him. Yellow then takes their turn, placing a new tile, and they'll expand to, for example, the beach. It's important to note that playing tiles can destroy parts of settlements that are on the board. So now red, if they so chose, could build over yellow's previously placed piece, which would destroy it, removing the piece from the board. Now this piece would still count for end of game scoring as a building placed onto the board, but is removed for the purposes of the size of settlements. Now you can see that red has a settlement of at least 3, and will be able to play 1 of their temples onto the board. The size of their settlement no longer matters, so if these buildings get destroyed at a later point, these huts, they no longer count. But temples and towers may never be destroyed. The game would continue with tile placement, expanding, and so forth and so on, and hopefully someone would eventually get to build a level 3 area so that they could place one of their towers. So let's just assume that somebody builds a level 3 over here, and they can place one of their towers. The game will end when one player has placed all of 2 types of their pieces, so all of their huts, all of their towers, all of their temples, or when all of the tiles have been placed, and then scoring will pursue. So that's Taluva, a really nice little 2 to 4 player game. It's kind of an abstract, really. It has a jungle theme. You're building little villages, but more of an abstract in reality. It plays quickly. You can learn it real quick, and I think it's pretty strategic. There's a lot of direct conflict, though, destroying other players' settlements, building your tiles so that they can't destroy your settlements, making sure you can drop down that temple before they destroy your settlement. It's really pretty interesting. I haven't had a lot of chance to play it with 2 players, which I've heard it really shines at, but we did enjoy this at the 3 to 4 player range. We're definitely holding on to this one. It's out of print, so you may have a hard time finding it, but if you do have a chance to pick up a copy, it's a great game. So I'd highly suggest this one, Taluva. Pick up a copy if you see it.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Yeah?